This is Emma reporting to you from the Tigris, Euphrates, River Valley, Sumerian, City-States, Babylon Empire. We will be discussing the economy of this region. In the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley, the Sumerians did indeed have economic interdependence throughout the society. Trade refers to the exchange of goods of units of value between the separate countries. They trade using the two rivers. Most of the time, they were trading with present-day Syria, northern Iraq, Turkey, and Egypt in the Indus River Valley. They depended a lot on these countries to trade with them. If the countries didn't trade with them, how could they have survived? Trading was a very important role in the civilization. It provided food and drink for everyone, and more importantly, great supplies and a form of money. Now remember, back in those days, there was not money. Trade really was trade. There was no give me a supply and I'll give you money. The Sumerians were trading imported goods of copper, tin, and timber for dried fish, wool, wheat, and metal goods. Not everyone in the civilization had to do the same kind of work for survival. This is called division of labor. For example, some people became craftsmen and used their special skills to help the society. The Sumerians also used ziggurats, a pyramid-shaped structure that formed part of Sumerian temple to store goods. Normal ziggurats were used for religious purposes, but if they needed more space to store things, they resorted to the ziggurats. The Sumerians believed that the success of the crops depended on the gods. Geography was a very important role in the trading process as well. Most of it depended on how the rivers wanted to act. Usually the Tigris and Euphrates rivers would flood Mesopotamia at least once a year. With that being said, when the floodwater receded, it left it a thick bed of mud called silt. This was very good for the farmers to plant grain in and irrigate the fields with the river water. The results of all of this were large quantities of wheat and barley at the harvesting time, which led villages to grow. There was not always an upside to having the rivers right in your backyard. A lot of unpredictable flooding and a period of no rain left the land almost becoming a desert-like area. Also, the Sumerians did not have natural barriers for protection, so they could not really fight back. In addition to the natural resources of Sumer were very limited, and building materials and other necessary items were scarce. So in saying that, it basically depended on the flood times for how it would react trade for the civilization. The economy in this area was indeed based on a division of social classes. At the top of the class were kings, landholders, and some priests. Then were the wealthy merchants. Then in the middle were the majority of people who worked on their hands in fields and workshops. The lowest ranked were the slaves. Some of the slaves were foreigners who had been captured in war. Others were Sumerians sold into slavery as children. Social classes affected both of the lives of men and women. Women could do just the same work as men if they chose to. For example, women could be merchants, farmers, artisans, or join the priesthood and hold property in their own names. Unfortunately, many upper-class women did not learn to read or write. As I wrap up the economy part of the broadcast, I will just like to say if I had to choose an area to live, I would choose the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley. They were very successful and had a great civilization. Now on to Kenzie for your geography.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kenzie Cattell reporting to you live from the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley. This civilization is located east of the Mediterranean Sea, south of Mesopotamia, and right in the middle of the Tigris and Euphrates River. As you see, the Tigris River right here. This land is very, very fertile, leaving the agriculture great for civilizations that developed here a long time ago. They would grow crops and own animals and live off what they grew. The geography also majorly affected the civilizations that used to live here. They went from hunting and gathering and moving all around to settling down and farming because the land was so fertile. They also had a great advantage with the two rivers so close by. They always had a water source that they could always rely on to drink and water their crops. But this geography could also affect them in a negative way. The rivers would flood unexpectedly all the time. So the farmers could not prepare for the floods and would have to be ready for them all the time. They also affected the housing of these civilizations because they would destroy all the housing and the people would have no place to live. Then the people had to rely on the king to shelter them, and sometimes they put a lot of pressure on the king to find homes and shelter for them. Their civilization was not really isolated from other civilizations though, because the rivers didn't do much, because most of the civilizations had boats to travel on. The Babylonian Empire though had some protection from other civilizations because they built a brick wall all the way around their civilization, so it protected them from other invaders. Other civilizations though didn't really build any protection for themselves. The Tigris and Euphrates River Valley is located southwest of Baghdad in southeastern Iraq and Kuwait. Now we have recently been hit with the question, how would geography as the mother of all history apply to the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley? This is a very good question, in fact, because geography affects a civilization so greatly. The quote would apply to this civilization because if it weren't for the geography of the land, it would change the whole history of the civilization. Say if it were a river valley that had no fertile land or was good enough for farming, then all the civilization that prospered from the farming would probably have to hunt and keep moving all around instead of settling down in farming, which would affect the civilization later on in history and would survive and how they would maintain their civilization. Also, our civilization was exposed to large bodies of water. We were just east of the Mediterranean Sea and north of the Persian Gulf, southwest of Lake Urmia, and of course, right in between the Tigris and Euphrates River. Well, that pretty much sums up the geography of this civilization. So for right now, this is Kenzie Gatal, and I would like to thank you for your time.
Hi, this is Emma, and I would like to inform you about our new product, Maize. Now on to Emily.
You might be wondering what maize helps you with. Constipation, losing weight, healthy eyelashes, strong knuckles and earlobes, fresh breath with the scent of maize. And maize also helps you with driving a car.
No texting while driving. Side effects of maize are death, suicidal thoughts, getting hit by a car, concussion, losing hearing in the left ear, and blindness in the nose. Oh, 100 maize.
Okay, next.
Hi, this is Janie reporting to you from the Tigris and Euphrates River Valley civilization. The civilization was governed with a king, and the king was also the basis for power. The king made the decisions, but some trials in court were determined by the speakers of the law. They emerged as a civilization in the 17th century BCE, and they reached their peak around the 16th century. They were around for a total of 3,350 years, but fell around 650 BC. Their rulership was the basis of power of kings and the organization of classes, and the richer and more wealthier people were treated superior. At first they had the law Lex Talionis, and it was later called an eye for an eye. They invaded Judah and burned Jerusalem. Their justice system was the idea of mirrored crimes, or what you do to one is then done to you. The geographic location also affected their civilization. They had rough rivers that changed course, so it was hard to send boats and goods down it. It was also dry and prone to extremes of weather. They fell because they were conquered by the Islamic, and they were under Sasanian domination. Now over to Emily for art and architecture.
Hi, I'm Emily, live from the River Valley. Here in ancient Mesopotamia, the religious artwork played a big role in their lifestyle. Just by looking at some of the pieces, you can tell they took a lot of pride in their religious arts. For example, ceramics and sculptures had symbols of the different gods molded or carved into them. As for the building style in this area, they would use bricks, often coating them with dyes to make designs and also clay and mud. They made buildings like temples, pyramids, and ziggurats with these materials. Mesopotamians were known for the innovations of cuneiform, found on clay tablets such as this.
I think that was the wrong side.
And also sailboats and some of the first music notes found on clay tablets like this. Also found on clay tablets were calendars, It is said that the calendars had 12 lunar months, 354 days, and then additional leap months were added, giving it 365 days, much like our own calendar. Different symbols symbolized different months, which got etched into the clay. Then they would let the clay dry in the sun, giving you a Mesopotamian calendar. Irrigation in ancient Mesopotamia was important because of the low rainfall, as seen in this river. Because they had to worry about water storage and flood control, they did constant dredging as long as men were available and organized. Often each city-state would have their own irrigation systems. Besides creating irrigation systems, they built memorable roads and houses by their meticulous brick-making. They would create beautifully stone-paved streets by sticking stones on the sticky black substance. I think it's safe to say that the arts here played a big role in the Mesopotamians' lives based on the amount of pieces we have found, and the fact that most of the pieces were decorated with intricate designs, meaning they put a lot of time and effort into these things. Therefore, it played an important role in this civilization. The main forms of art would have to be all the objects and buildings made out of clay and bricks, such as calendars, temples, ziggurats, pyramids, seals, and even the little clay dolls for the younger kids. Ancient Mesopotamia, especially in Sumeria, was the beginning of really big buildings and houses made out of clay, mud brick, or fire clay. The first building was solid inside because the Mesopotamians didn't know how a building could stand if it was hollow inside. Each city-state had their own ziggurat. Lastly, there was a huge city wall built around the city. Well, that's all I have for you today, and my name is Emily. Thank you.
Ow! No more blooper! Yes! You want to see?